Hey, how's it going? Got another trick for you today in Ableton, and it's something I just learned recently, and I feel kind of dumb that I've never checked this out before or even knew it existed. I'm sure most everybody knows that if you want a side chain with a compressor, you drag your compressor on, and there's that little triangle button that opens up your sidechain menu where you get your audio source from. But I never thought to look at other effects that have that triangle that opens up a menu. A lot of them have the ability to sidechain, and some of them it opens up a secondary menu that allows you to access, some more parameters. But what we're going to be talking about today is the gate. So you can use the gate like a sidechain, but the reversed way. So you can use drum loops, whatever, to trigger that gate to let audio through. Whereas, in a compressor, you are, maybe sidechaining to a kick and you're telling the compressor, I want you to duck down the volume of this bass when the kick comes in. So we're doing the opposite of that. So before I get into all the details here, let me just show you how it works. Some of you may already know this, but I'm going to show you a way of using this trick that's kind of interesting, especially if you want to use it with drums. But the way this works is you hit that little triangle, you go to sidechain. We have a little drum loop here. And I have some chords from my OP1. Let's turn the gate off. So with that gate on here, we turn it back on, we go to sidechain, click on it, and then we're gonna take our audio input from the track with the drum break on it. And if we play those, you can hear that the drum break is telling the gate when to let the audio through from those chords. So, pretty cool. If we turn off the drum break, you can hear. We can change the release, let more through, the longer tail. We've got the attack and hold. And then your threshold, of course. So if you look while this is playing, hopefully you can see it because I know it's super tiny, but there is a darker gray outline of the drum break waveform in the back. So if you play around with the threshold line here, if you take it up to the very top, you're just going to be catching whatever transients, are coming through. If you go down, you're going to be getting more of those quieter sounds. So nice trick to use with chords, but what I wanted to show you today was there's a cool way that you can add some movement and texture to a drum or percussion loop, or maybe just a kick pattern. It's really helpful if you want to make something sound a little bit more interesting. Nice little sound design trick. So we're going to get rid of these chords. So let me show you how this works. It's the same idea. I have a drum pattern that I made and then added a bunch of crazy effects to kind of glitch it out, give it some texture, weird kind of sounds coming in and out. And let's listen to that just by itself. Let's turn the gate off. So long sample, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you can hear that it's changing. It's something that I resampled, you know, while I was tweaking effects. So what the cool thing is about this is if we turn a gate back on, we sidechain, we're going to go back over to our drum loop, and we're going to go into the warp menu here. Make sure it's on beats. And then you're going to go to the little arrow menu. I'm sorry, I don't know what this is called, but you're going to click on the arrow that's just the single arrow pointing forward with a line in front of it. And if you didn't know this already, this allows us to play around with the transients. So we can shorten the sounds, just let the transient through, or let a little bit of the sound, like the tail afterward from that transient through. So let's take a listen here. Up to 100 sounds as it should, and as we take it down, go all the way to 1, or 0 rather, we're just hearing that transient now. So I'm going to take it all the way down to 0. So I'm just getting that snappy transient. And then we're going to do the same thing with the gate. And what that's going to allow us to do is get a nice transient from the drum loop, and then get some tails from the resampled drums. And then we're going to, you know, combine them so they're, you know, one sound, and it doesn't sound like, you know, two separate sound sources. So let's take a listen. So we're going to group these two tracks because they still sound pretty separated. And then let's throw some good old OTT. It's a preset on the multi-band dynamics here. We're going to drop it on there so we can kind of glue these sounds together. Maybe turn down that jungle break a little bit. And then you can play with the release on that gate to, you know, give it even more variation. So, you know, maybe you could even drop an LFO here, and let's set it to random, and we're going to map that to the release. And we don't want it to go too low. So let's say about, let's like 30% or so, 29%. And maybe turn the smoothing up. Now let's listen to it. And we'll change it to like maybe 8th notes. Let's actually turn the smoothing down. And we'll turn up our range like 39%. So nice way to kind of spice up a drum loop or make an entirely new drum loop that you can resample. Something else you can do is, instead of using a resampled drum loop like I am on the gated side here, this crispy drum loop, you can just use kind of a noise soundscape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my OP1 over here, and I'm going to run it through the Korg Monotron delay. Depending on when I upload this video, I may or may not have a video on the Korg Monotron. Really cool piece of gear, very cheap analog delay, super noisy and gritty. So we're going to make ourselves a little soundscape here, and then we're going to throw that in and see how that sounds, just to give you another idea of how you can use this. So I'm going to do a quick little take here. What's going on the OP is just some samples from a Make Noise Zero Coast. It's like a little modular synth. And I'm just gonna have it running on arpeggiate just to trigger some sounds, and then I'll be playing around with the delay just so we get some nice variation here. So let's go ahead and record something. All right, I think that's good enough. So we don't need to listen back to that. Let's just drag it into our gate track and see how it sounds. And then maybe we can kind of further process it. So let's turn the LFO off for now and let's take a listen. So it sounds pretty cool, but I think we could fool around with the sound a little bit more. Let's go ahead and drag it back over to this empty track. And what we're gonna do is just throw some effects on it, resample it, and then I have another little trick that you can use with the warp mode after we change up our sound a little bit here. So let's drag a grain delay onto this. Let's get an LFO. Let's get the spectral time. It's like one of my new favorite effects from Ableton 11. And let's grab OTT, why not? So we're gonna set our LFO to random. And then we are going to map to time. We're gonna turn our mix all the way up on the spectral time. We're gonna turn our dry wet all the way up. And our feedback should be all the way down. And then let's go ahead and map tilt. Let's map mask. Let's map the pitch from the grain delay. And I don't want it to go too low, so I'm gonna, for the pitch, I'm gonna go for like 40 to 100%. And then let's turn sync off on our grain delay. And then let's map frequency. Let's see how this sounds. All right, so let's play around with that and resample it. Let's see, let's go back here. Let's maybe turn smooth up on the LFO. Make ourselves another track. Let's get a sample of this. And we're also going to play around with the warp on the sample. As a matter of fact, let's do that before we get started. So on our sample here, we're going to go to beats, and we're going to do that same little trick. Do the arrow, single arrow forward, and we're going to turn our transients down, but we're going to kind of play with it as we resample it. Let's turn some of the spectral off. All right, so we got that first little bit there. Now we're going to try something different. What I want to do, I'm going to get rid of the spectral time just so we get a nice variety of sounds here. So on this sample that we got from the OP, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of push around some of the warp markers. And we're going to try to like put it in time. So let's see. Let's actually just quantize, and then we're going to reduce. We're going to divide the time so it goes faster. So it's like truncated, and we're going to hit more of those transients than we would if it was in the normal speed. So let's see how that sounds. We're going to play around with the warp setting here. And then let's turn up the time on OTT and get one more sample, and then we'll see how it sounds. Let's change our warp mode to texture, and then let's stretch it out. All right, I think that's enough. Let's see if this is an improvement. But you know, that's the cool thing about Ableton is you can take an awful sound, add a bunch of effects to it, make it sound even more awful, keep going. Eventually, you know, you may or may not find yourself with something interesting. So it's all about, you know, exploring and possibly, you know, wasting your time tweaking effects for 30 to 40 minutes. But let's see what we got. So let's bring in our other drum track. So we put those back into the gate track. Listen to the other one. All right, let's listen to our last little sample here. right, that one sounds nice. I think I like that one. You know, this is something that you could then resample again, chop up. You know, you don't need to use a drum loop. You could use a percussion loop, or you could even, let's go ahead and get rid of that drum loop. You know, you could pull in just a kick or a whole drum rack. Come on, let me put it in here. Take a 808, put it in here. And then if we change the sidechain input to the 808 kit, you know, then you could have this just paired up with a kick or, you know, any single drum, you know, so you don't get something too busy. And just use it to kind of, you know, liven up the kick. You don't have to use something as crazy as I just made. You could make something a lot more subtle, you know, using just some noise or vinyl crackle or, you know, something that's going to blend in a little bit better. So let's see, you know, if we go ahead and make ourselves a little pattern here with the kick. And we can bring up the threshold so we're just getting the top of the kicks because that kick has a pretty long release. And maybe we add, you know, something else in there. Let's hear that original. All right, so I hope that was informative, something you can use. I had no idea that existed in Gate. I think I was just thinking one day, I wonder if there's a way to do the opposite of what sidechain does, and I looked it up, and sure enough. So thanks for watching, and go ahead and subscribe if you like what you're seeing. Once again, if you got any ideas or you want to see anything as far as Ableton goes or anything else, you got some suggestions, let me know. I'll be trying to post as regularly as I can. So have a good one.